Premature burial was rife in times of plague, which is understandable because people were terrified by the risk of infection and anxious to dispose of the bodies as quickly as possible. But of course this meant that a number of people who might have recovered, who were perhaps only in a drunken stupor, were thrust into the earth and woke to find themselves incarcerated in the darkness. If they got out and were noticed, this again could have led to rumors of vampires which would have spread like a form of mass hysteria. Bram Stoker knew about the plague. His mother Charlotte was a young girl in County Sligo when the cholera epidemic swept across Europe to Western Ireland. My grandmother, Enid Stoker, told me a horrifying family story of how when the cholera epidemic was at its peak and the house barricaded against looters and the last survivors in the village, Charlotte saw a hand creeping through the skylight, took an axe and cut it off. And my grandmother was not a fanciful woman. Maybe hearing such stories when he was a child, this gave Bram his first taste for horror. There are other cases of vampirism in Britain today, as I learned from the Reverend Neil Smith when I asked if he knew of specific instances.
Oh yes, more than one. I mean, one particularly strikes me is that of a woman who showed me the marks on her wrists, which appeared at night, and definitely where the blood had been taken from her wrists at night, and the marks were there in the morning. And there's no apparent reason why this should have occurred.
What sort of marks?
Well, marks almost like that of an animal. I mean, like a scratching.
But couldn't you have done this herself?
Well, she's a married woman, and there's no evidence from her husband or otherwise that such things did occur in the night.
And she came to you for help?
She came to me for help, but she felt that her blood was being sucked.
And did you perform an exorcism on her?
Yes, I did.
And what happened?
And these marks cleared up.
How recently was this?
Oh, not very long ago. It's a matter of months.
Do you know of other examples when there was physical evidence?
Yes, there was a man from South America who had a similar phenomenon at night, and the blood had been sucked from him and the marks were on him, and he showed me the marks. And again, after the exorcism, they disappeared.
Were they marks of biting, or?
Yes, again, like this sort of strange little phenomenon of like an animal. As if an animal had sucked away his blood and attacked him at night.
You don't think he just had an extremely exciting sexual night somewhere?
No, I think that, he was sufficiently intelligent to reckon that this was abnormal.
But surely any sane person would regard the idea of vampirism as absurd.
No, I wouldn't think so, because I think I found that people in dealing with exorcism, it's the more intelligent people, I would think, who would accept such ideas more easily than the less intelligent, because they would be more open-minded regarding spirits and forces outside themselves.
And you would categorically say that there is, in fact, then an evil force of energy around us, and that this could attack you or me, perhaps not you, but anyone, any ordinary person in the street?
Oh, yes, it could to me as well. I mean, I'm in danger in doing exorcism, that the thing could come on to me. I admit this. And I believe that the devil has his agents, and these are the demons all around the place.
And are we all vulnerable?
I can't think that people could say that they are never vulnerable. I think it's a dangerous idea, because it may be just when they're saying that something may attack them.
It is just this dabbling with the occult that so many people regard as dangerous. Recently, it has assumed the scale of an epidemic, especially in our cities. In the reassuring setting of a vicarage in Hull, I spoke to the Reverend Willis. He is a family man with both feet firmly on the ground, but he is seriously worried by today's fascination with the Ouija board, seances, and witches' covens. He believes that this presents the church with a real problem.
Clergy all over the country have been deluged with people coming to them for help because either it's induced a mental breakdown with a lot of people ending up in mental hospitals, a lot of people are driven to attempted suicide in this area at any rate, and in other areas I know there have been several cases of real suicide from people playing around with the Ouija boards even, or just consulting mediums or fortune tellers.
Have you yourself ever had real evidence that makes you believe in the devil?
In one particular case, I remember, a family had rung up the Samaritan service, who in turn asked myself and another priest to go along and help a family who were in terror out in the street. We got the family back into the house, and after having talked to them for some time, one of the women complained that something was around her, a horrible coldness, and could I help her? Could I go over there and pray with her? And I went across the room to her, and she began to say, please help me, because it's around me. I've gone all cold. It's all around me. Please help. Please help me. Please help me. And she began to struggle with something around her throat. She began to physically choke. And I read plenty of times in fiction of people saying, that their eyes bulged in terror. But this is the first time I ever really saw it myself. Her eyes came right out of the sockets and bulged like this. Help me. And she was struggling. And I thought, well, is this some sort of psychological flip? Some hysteria. So for a while, a few seconds, I didn't do anything. But eventually, she got so desperate and was obviously choking that I thought I must do something. And I must assume that this is something evil around her. And I went over to her and said, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, I command you to come out of her and go to that place appointed for you. And nothing happened. And for a moment I was puzzled. But then I remember reading that sometimes people involved in exorcisms have a big struggle. So I kept on with this same command, on and on, several times, over perhaps 10 or 15 seconds, which is quite a long time really. And eventually she collapsed on the floor. We took a glass of water to her and brought her around, but for a quarter of an hour she wouldn't talk about it. She just couldn't talk about it. She was so frightened. But eventually we said, well, what happened? And she said, something just completely took over me. I felt as though I was being pushed out of myself. I'm convinced I would have died if you hadn't begun to do something. And she said, I heard your voice in the dim distance, praying. And gradually, she said, I seemed to come back into myself. And I said, what did you actually see or feel? And she said, the only thing I saw was a face which looked like a doll with staring eyes, absolutely hypnotizing me. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. And then I blacked out. Well, I prayed with her, prayed with the family. We eventually went and blessed the whole house. And after some time, they said, we feel completely at peace now. Whatever it is gone. I returned home and creeping upstairs with my shoes in my hand, found my wife wide awake, sat up in bed saying, "Phew, thank goodness you're back." I said, "Why, what's the matter?" She said, "I've had the most terrible nightmare of my life." I said, "Well, what was the matter?" She said, "Well, it was only a dream," but she said, "I felt there was something evil in the house attacking myself and the children." She said, "In my dream, I met it in the sitting room. I went downstairs and met it in the sitting room and got hold of it and smashed it in the name of the Trinity against the wall, and a blue liquid came out. When I woke up," she said, "I was so scared by it, and I went round and prayed with all the children and have been awake ever since." So I said, "Well, what was it that you broke? What was it you saw?" And she said, "Well, it was something horrible and evil, like a doll."
God.
So something, however you view it, happened, passed between the two houses. My wife didn't know. She knew I'd been called out on something, but she knew nothing of the circumstances we'd been dealing with. Somehow something flashed between the two houses, whether it was some telepathic vision of some kind, or whether it was evil hitting back at my family, of course, is open to controversy.
You don't think that possibly, because you are a member of the church and in a way associated with the devil and with evil, that you could induce this yourself?
I don't think so, because you see that the problem was there before I was ever called in.
Yes.
You know, I didn't go around and give them the idea that there could be some sort of possession. They rang up the Samaritan and said, please, there's something in our house, can you send us someone who'll help?
What can the church and what should the church do about the problem?
I think we have got to restudy Christian belief about evil, about the teaching of Christ about evil. After all, Christ gave 3 commands to the church: preach the gospel, heal the sick, and cast out evil. And we've rather neglected the casting out of evil. We haven't met much of it in the last 300 years. In Britain and Western Europe, not many people have dabbled in witchcraft or devil worship or even consulting fortune tellers to any great number. There always have been a few. But suddenly in the 20th century, we've got this occult explosion, everybody doing it, and it's a social problem.
At Nastrom Abbey, I asked Dom Petitpierre, who is greatly respected as an authority on the subject, for his explanation of the resurgence of the occult in 1974.
Well, I think it's due to a number of causes myself. First of all, it's a reaction against the old materialism of last century, and a good deal of the modern thinking that mental problems are entirely concerned inside oneself. And this is looking for something outside and deeper than merely materialistic considerations.
The desperate need to believe in something.
In something. And because the Christian churches have got caught up with making noises and nothing much else, they haven't taught what we call contemplative prayer. People are looking for something beyond themselves. That's another factor.
So would you say the church has failed?
Yes, I think so. I think it's kept up a sort of 19th, 18th and 19th century idea that everybody is a Christian and knows their stuff. And of course it isn't true now. And I think there's a third reason, and that is that modern civilization is so utterly impersonal that in the occult groups you get a deeply personal relationship with about 12 people. And this is of great value to the young.
Why should man want to embrace the devil and evil?
Well, I'm not quite sure that the occult groups are looking out for the devil or evil. I remember one young man who said he'd been going to a black magic group for 2 years, and Lucifer was marvelous. He didn't see Lucifer as anti-God. He just saw Lucifer as something big beyond himself.
What will happen in the future, do you think? Will the devil win?
Oh no, the devil never wins. He gets occasional victories, but no final success.
Back in Romania, where the whole Dracula business started, it is rather ironic that the frescoes on the churches still reflect the eternal struggle between Christianity and the devil. A few months ago, I did not believe in the devil, and most certainly I did not believe in vampires, and I don't think I do now. But I do realize that there's this yearning among people today to believe in something. As they see the cities destroyed around them, the landscape scarred, all in the pursuit of material gain, there's this ache for something better and less artificial, a return to more spiritual values, be it a less soulless way of life, even if that means the occult. But this is a subject that defies any neat conclusion.